Have you ever noticed that the people who drain the very life out of you are often the same ones you tried hardest to treat with kindness? They don't storm into the room shouting. They don't throw insults directly in your face. Instead, they work like shadows, quiet, deliberate, and calculated. They twist your words. They warp the truth. They smirk when you stumble, and they vanish when you need them most. At first, it doesn't look like an attack. It looks like neglect, a delayed reply, a forgotten promise, a half smile when you fall short. But beneath that subtle exterior lies their real weapon, doubt. They plant it like a seed inside your mind, and soon you begin questioning yourself. And when you finally reach a breaking point, when you can't take it anymore and you snap, they tilt their head, look at you calmly, and somehow you are the one who looks irrational. You are the problem. It doesn't matter who they are, a colleague, a family member, an old friend, or even someone you once thought you loved. The result is always the same. You walk away from every encounter feeling drained, guilty, and strangely responsible for maintaining peace. After all, isn't that what you were taught? Be kind, be patient, be the bigger person. But Niccolo Machiavelli would never advise you to play the role of the endlessly understanding saint. He would ask you one cold question. Are you being kind, or are you simply allowing yourself to be eroded piece by piece by someone who feeds off your compliance? Here's the brutal reality. In a world full of manipulators, kindness without strategy is not virtue, it's self-destruction. And there is one truth you must carve into your mind. You cannot fix a person who has no intention of changing. You cannot heal someone who thrives on keeping you broken. The only real move, the only path to reclaiming your power, is to deny them access to your mind. That begins with unlearning nearly everything you were taught about being good. You see, toxic people don't just want to hurt you. That's too simple. They want to observe you while you hurt. They want to study how you respond, how your emotions spill out, how predictable you become. They don't need logic. They don't crave fairness. They live off the emotional output you provide. And the more consistent and predictable you are, the more control they gain. They know you'll respond. They know you'll explain. They know you can't stand being misunderstood. And that's exactly why they push your buttons. Because they don't want resolution, they want reaction. Every time you say, "That's not what I meant." Every time you write out long messages, clarifying your position. Every time you forgive them, hoping this time they'll finally change. You've stepped straight into their trap. They act offended and you soften. They blame you and you apologize. They go silent and you spiral with anxiety. They rage and you calm them down. Every movement, every emotional twitch, they collect it like data. And the more they collect, the sharper their manipulation becomes. If you don't seize control of your emotions, someone else will seize them for you. And once they control your emotions, they control you. You may tell yourself, "I just want to keep the peace. I don't want to make things worse. I don't want to be harsh." But what you're really doing isn't preserving peace. It's delaying a war that is happening inside you. While you wait for them to change, they're evolving, not into better people, but into better manipulators, refining the art of subtle harm. You think you're doing the right thing by staying soft, patient, understanding. But in truth, you're just doing what's expected of you. And when you do what's expected, you're easily controlled. Machiavelli wrote that the most successful rulers were not the most virtuous, but those who understood human behavior and learned to control it from shadows. Toxic people understand this instinctively. They don't want your loyalty. They want your hesitation. And their ultimate victory is convincing you that your reaction is your obligation, that you must explain, that you must respond, that you must soothe them. But here's the truth. You don't owe them a single word. You don't have to respond. You don't have to clarify. You don't have to absorb their storm just to keep things calm. What they fear most isn't your anger. It's your refusal to play. It's your silence. Because silence is the first signal that you've seen their blueprint and you've stopped following it. Reaction is weakness. Intention is power. And silence, when used with strategy, becomes domination. Boundaries, therefore, are not emotional pleas. They are not more requests. They are not about convincing someone to treat you better. Boundaries are a weapon, a strategy. Toxic people don't cross your boundaries because they don't understand them. They cross them because they know you won't enforce them. They test, they prod, they wait. And every time you flinch, explain, or soften, you reinforce their control. From childhood, many of us were taught that saying no is rude, that setting limits is selfish, that turning someone away makes you unkind. That way of thinking was not designed to make you stronger. It was designed to make you easy prey. You were raised and gnawed to adapt, to absorb discomfort, to carry weights that weren't yours, all in the name of being a good person. But the harsh truth is this: good people get used. Strategic people get respected. So, how do you begin reclaiming your control? It starts with brutal clarity. Ask yourself, who drains me? Who ignores my time, my limits, my energy? Who respects me only when it benefits them? Once you identify those people, you must stop seeking permission to protect yourself. You set boundaries without guilt, without negotiation, without emotional leakage. You let your no be clean, sharp, final. You let your distance be silent but immovable. You let your actions speak where your words failed. You tell the needy friend, I'm not available at your convenience anymore. You tell the demanding co-worker, I don't respond to messages after hours. You tell the family member who thrives on drama, I won't engage with negativity. And then you stop. No long explanation. No nervous smile. No apology wrapped around your words. Because here's what toxic people fear most: the person who no longer plays their game. They want loopholes, debates, back and forths. They want the softness in your tone, the guilt in your eyes, the weakness in your over-explaining. Take that away and they lose leverage. No is not the beginning of a discussion. It is the end of one. If someone gets upset about your boundary, that's not a reason to reconsider. That's confirmation it was necessary. And yes, they will accuse you of being cold. They will say you've changed. They will call you selfish. Good. That means your boundary worked. Because here's the truth. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will never cheer when you finally grow a spine. And that's fine, because your role in life is no longer to make others comfortable. It's to protect your peace. That peace, your time, your energy, your emotional space. It is your territory. Like any kingdom, it must be guarded with vigilance and defended with silence. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you stop bleeding power. A boundary is not offense. It is not defense. It is a blade. And the sharper the blade, the less often you have to swing it. But remember this: toxic people don't need to shout at you to break you. They don't need to insult you directly. They know exactly where your cracks are, and they press just enough to keep you uneasy. They don't fight openly. They play chess in the dark. Subtle, patient, precise. They weaponize the small things. The backhanded compliment. Wow, you finally got something right. The guilt trip. I guess I'll suffer alone since you're too busy. The silent treatment. Hours or days of silence until you feel worthless. The blame shift. I wouldn't have done this if you hadn't provoked me. Or the triangulation. Turning others against you quietly while pretending they're neutral. None of this is random. None of it is accidental. This is psychological warfare. And the battlefield is your nervous system. You start doubting yourself. You overanalyze every word you speak. You apologize when you did nothing wrong. You start feeling like maybe you're the crazy one. This is programming, emotional programming, and they are masters of it. But here's the key. They can only keep running the program if you keep reacting the same way. Every time you defend yourself, justify your feelings, or beg to be understood, you feed their system. They don't want resolution. They want you stuck in the loop. They win when you lose emotional control. They lose when you remain calm and in command. So how do you break the cycle? 3 simple steps. First, neutralize their bait. When they prod, when they throw the subtle insult, when they guilt trip you, respond with cold neutrality. A flat, unshakable tone. That's your opinion. I see. Noted. Short. Simple. Undramatic. They cannot escalate what refuses to react. Second, delay your responses. Toxic people want immediacy. They want emotion now. If they provoke you by text or email, resist the urge to reply instantly. Time is your weapon. Let their urgency die in silence. Third, exit the conversation. If the air thickens with manipulation, if the tension rises, walk away. No performance, no storming out, no dramatic speech. Just calmly state, "I'm not available for this conversation." Then leave. No apology. No guilt. No looking back. That one act delivers more power than hours of arguing, because now they're left alone with their tactics. No fuel. No reaction. No supply. And when you consistently refuse to play, they eventually stop inviting you to the game. But make no mistake, they will escalate first. When you go neutral, they'll press harder. When you stop reacting, they'll provoke deeper. When you pull away, they'll throw guilt, tears, rage, pity, anything to pull you back. Not because they care, but because they're losing control. And here's where you must hold the line. They cannot handle someone who refuses to absorb their chaos. They collapse in the face of psychological stillness. So stay still, stay unreadable, stay untouchable. Because once they realize you've changed your pattern, they face the one thing they fear most, the truth. They no longer have control. Think of it this way. Every toxic person you've ever dealt with is playing a game. But unlike you, they aren't playing for fairness, love, or understanding. They're playing for control. And the only way to win a game of control is to make sure the other player doesn't even realize they're playing. That's why you never saw the trap at first. You thought they cared. You thought they were struggling. You thought they just needed a little more patience, a little more compassion, a little more of your time. But they weren't struggling. They were studying. They were measuring how much you'd give before you broke. They watched how fast you forgave. They noted how quickly you answered their calls. They saw how you explained yourself in long paragraphs, desperate to be understood. They memorized your triggers, your weaknesses, your patterns. And once they knew your script, they never had to improvise again. You became predictable. And predictability is the death of freedom. Machiavelli warned that the one who can predict you owns you. Because once they know your moves, they can plan 3 steps ahead. That's why manipulators seem almost psychic. They know exactly what you'll do, because you've trained them by doing it over and over. They know if they pout, you'll comfort them. If they rage, you'll apologize. If they go silent, you'll chase. If they accuse, you'll explain. Do you see the pattern? You're not reacting. You're performing. Performing on command like a puppet. And the cruelest part? The more you try to fix things with them, the deeper you bury yourself in their control. Because trying to fix what was never broken is the ultimate trap. Nothing is broken on their end. They want you in the loop. They want you drained, exhausted, doubting, apologizing. They want you tangled in their web, not because they love you, but because your chaos feeds them. You cannot cure someone who is addicted to your pain. So what's the way out? Cold strategy. Not emotion. Not hope. Strategy. The first step is to stop being predictable. You must break your pattern. If you normally explain, stop explaining. If you normally chase after silence, stop chasing. If you normally apologize first, don't. The power isn't in what you do. It's in what you no longer give. Silence isn't just an absence of words. It's an active refusal to play. And the moment you stop playing, you force them into discomfort. Think about it. Manipulators thrive on rhythm. They push, you pull. They accuse, you defend. They leave, you chase. That rhythm is their comfort zone. Break it, and they lose their balance. But breaking the rhythm requires one thing most people fear: detachment. Detachment means you no longer see them as someone you must fix, please, or win over. Detachment means seeing them for what they are, a strategist feeding off your compliance. And when you detach, you cut the cord that fuels their control. This doesn't mean you stop caring about humanity. It doesn't mean you become cruel. It means you finally recognize that some people do not deserve access to your energy, no matter who they are. Because here's the truth. Not everyone you lose is a loss. Sometimes, losing someone is the first step toward reclaiming yourself. But manipulators will never let you go peacefully. Oh no, The moment they sense your detachment, they'll switch tactics. They'll play the victim. They'll tell you you're heartless. They'll cry, rage, beg, accuse. They'll even promise to change. They'll say all the right words. I see what I've done. I'll do better. Just give me one more chance. And if you're not careful, those words will melt your resolve. You'll believe them. You'll step back into the cycle. And within weeks, maybe days, they'll be back to their old games. Here's the brutal reality. When someone shows you who they are repeatedly, believe them. Machiavelli taught that promises are the cheapest currency in power. People promise when they fear losing their advantage. They don't promise to change. They promise to keep you compliant. So don't listen to words. Watch actions. And if the actions stay the same, the words are nothing but smoke. That's why your silence, your distance, your unshakable detachment, these are not cruelty. They are clarity. Think of it like a kingdom. If an enemy keeps raiding your walls, stealing your food, poisoning your water, would you invite them in for dinner? Would you say, maybe this time they won't betray me? Of course not. You would strengthen your walls. You would close the gates. You would fortify your defenses. Your boundaries are your gates. Your silence is your fortress. Your detachment is your army. The moment you internalize this, everything changes. Because toxic people only win when they convince you that defending yourself makes you cruel. They want you to feel guilty for saying no. They want you to think boundaries are selfish. They want you to see detachment as betrayal. But what they call betrayal is actually survival. Here's another truth. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to you. Not your friends. Not your family. Not your partner. Not your coworkers. Nobody. Your time and energy are your most valuable currencies, and once spent, they never return. If someone is constantly draining them, you are financing your own destruction. Stop financing your own destruction. Some people will never clap when you set boundaries. They will boo. They will scream. They will call you cold, selfish, arrogant. Let them, because those who truly respect you will never be offended by your limits. Only those who benefited from your lack of them will protest. That's the test. Who gets angry when you say no? That's the person who was never with you. They were with your compliance. The art of power is not about being loved by everyone. It's about being respected by the right ones. And respect begins with self-respect. Machiavelli said it clearly. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But in personal life, this doesn't mean inspiring terror. It means inspiring respect. It means your no carries weight. It means your silence cannot be ignored. It means your detachment is unshakable. And once people realize you cannot be manipulated, something fascinating happens. The toxic ones fall away, and the healthy ones draw closer. Why? Because healthy people love boundaries. Boundaries make them feel safe. Boundaries show them where they stand. Boundaries prove you have respect for yourself and for them. Unhealthy people, on the other hand, crumble in the presence of boundaries. They rage. They guilt trip. They smear. They leave. And let them. Their exit is not your loss. It's your freedom. But let's not romanticize it. Walking away isn't easy. Detachment isn't painless. At first, silence feels like suffocation. You want to explain. You want to chase. You want to smooth things over. That's your old programming screaming. But you must resist. Because the pain you feel in attachment is not the pain of loss. It's the pain of detox. You are detoxing from a cycle of manipulation. And like any detox, it feels unbearable at first. But with time, clarity replaces chaos. Stillness replaces storms. Freedom replaces fear. That's the moment you realize you never needed their approval. You never needed their validation. You only needed your own permission to protect yourself. And once you give yourself that permission, you become untouchable. They can call you names. They can twist the story. They can paint you as the villain. But it doesn't matter, because you no longer play the game. And when you no longer play, they can no longer win. Your silence is louder than their accusations. Your distance is stronger than their manipulation. Your detachment is deadlier than their rage. This is not about revenge. Revenge keeps you tied to them. This is about elevation, about rising so far above their chaos that they can no longer reach you. And when you rise, something happens that will terrify them. You stop reacting, but you also stop caring. Truly, deeply stop caring. That's a final blow. Because they can handle your anger, your tears, your begging, your pleading. They can feed off those forever. But your indifference, your cold, calm indifference, that is death to them. To stop caring is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. Because caring about the wrong people is the chain that binds you to misery. Breaking that chain is the most Machiavellian move you can make. And here's the final truth of this part. When you stop caring about people who don't care for you, you don't just protect yourself. You free yourself. You reclaim the hours, the energy, the mental space they once owned. You rediscover who you were before they drained you. And in that silence, in that detachment, you find something rare. Peace. Not the fake peace you try to maintain by absorbing their chaos. Not the fragile peace that depended on keeping them happy. But real peace. The kind that comes when the noise dies down and the storm passes. Not because they change, but because you stop letting them in. That's not cruelty. That's not selfishness. That is survival. That is power. That is the only way to win against people who were never playing fair. And once you understand this, once you truly live it, you will never fear losing people again, because you'll know the truth. The only person you could ever lose who truly matters is yourself. Never lose yourself again. Here's the paradox. The people who drained you, broke you, and tried to control you, those very people unknowingly gave you a gift. Not a pleasant one, not a soft one, but a brutal, necessary gift. The awakening. Because once you've been burned by manipulation, you develop an awareness most people never reach. You start to see patterns in others. You hear the hidden motives in their words. You feel the shift in energy when someone is lying, when someone is flattering, when someone is planting guilt. You walk through fire, and now you can smell smoke before the flames appear. That's why the most dangerous person in any room is not the manipulator. It's the one who has survived a manipulator and learned. Because now you don't just live with emotion, you live with strategy. You've seen the game from the inside, and you know every move. And here's the beauty. When you master detachment, silence, and self-respect, you don't become cold. You become clear. You don't stop loving. You just stop bleeding for people who don't deserve it. Love without boundaries is not love. It's self-destruction. Compassion without limits is not compassion. It's servitude. Forgiveness without change is not forgiveness. It's surrender. You are not here to be drained, to be used, to be someone's endless supply of validation. You are here to grow, to build, to stand, to protect the one life you've been given. And that means one thing. Your peace is non-negotiable. Think of peace like a crown. If you wear it loosely, anyone can snatch it from your head. But if you guard it like a king, if you defend it like a fortress, then peace becomes your throne. And from that throne, you rule your own life. This is why Machiavelli's wisdom still cuts through centuries. He never sugarcoated human nature. He understood that not everyone acts with kindness, that not everyone seeks fairness, that many people are driven by power, control, and gain. The naive suffer because they expect wolves to act like sheep, but the awakened thrive because they recognize wolves for what they are. And you, after everything you've endured, you are no longer naive. You've been tested. You've been broken. But now you see. You see that some people only come close to you when they need. You see that silence after your no is proof they never valued you. You see that love without respect is not love at all. And once you see, you cannot unsee. That's why people who master detachment radiate an aura others can't explain. They look calm, but strong. Gentle, but unshakable. They don't raise their voices, but their silence commands more power than shouting ever could. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. They are aligned with truth, with clarity, with the unbreakable law of self-respect. The world respects those who respect themselves. And here's something else. Manipulators may still try, but they'll sense something different in you. They'll feel that your energy is untouchable. They'll try the guilt, the rage, the silence, the flattery, but nothing works. And when nothing works, they retreat, not because you fought them, but because you starve them. Power doesn't always come from attacking. Sometimes, the greatest power is in refusing to engage. Think of it like chess. The weak player reacts to every move, scrambling, defending, chasing. The strong player sees 10 moves ahead and doesn't waste energy on distractions. That's you now. No more scrambling. No more chasing. No more begging to be seen. You don't beg for respect. You command it. You don't explain your worth. You embody it. You don't fight for peace. You walk away from chaos. And yes, walking away can feel like loss. But what you're really losing is weight. You're shedding chains. You're releasing toxins. You're letting go of people who were never truly with you. Freedom always feels heavy at first, because your hands are still shaking from what they used to hold. But soon, those hands will build something new, something real. Here's the deeper truth. Your greatest revenge against those who tried to control you is not anger, not bitterness, not proving them wrong. Your greatest revenge is peace. A life so silent, so grounded, so free, that their memory becomes irrelevant. You don't rise by showing them. You rise by forgetting them. That is the ultimate Machiavellian twist. The very people who thought they broke you end up becoming the reason you built yourself stronger than ever. And when you're strong, something shifts forever. You stop chasing people and you start attracting them. Not the toxic ones, not the manipulators, but the aligned ones. People who see your strength and respect it. People who don't drain, but contribute. People who don't demand, but exchange. Healthy energy is drawn to healthy energy. And here's the promise. Once you experience relationships that respect your boundaries, you'll never go back to ones that don't. Once you taste peace, chaos becomes disgusting. Once you know your worth, begging becomes impossible. This is why the storm was necessary. Without the pain, you would have never awakened. Without the manipulation, you would have never learned strategy. Without the breaking, you would have never rebuilt. The scars are not weakness. They are proof of survival. Proof that you faced the wolves and lived to tell the story. Proof that you now carry something most people never develop. Unshakable awareness. Awareness is the ultimate shield. Because with awareness, you don't just react, you anticipate. You don't just survive, you choose. You don't just exist, you rule. Rule what? Yourself, your time, your energy, your life. And that is the deepest form of power. Not ruling others, not controlling the world, but ruling yourself so completely that nothing outside of you can shake your foundation. When you get there, manipulators can't touch you. Guilt can't reach you. Chaos can't tempt you. You become the eye of the storm, calm, centered, untouchable. That is strength. That is freedom. That is the final lesson. So hear me clearly. Stop explaining to those committed to misunderstanding you. Stop bleeding for those who would never bleed for you. Stop offering loyalty to those who see you as disposable. You owe no one your destruction. You owe yourself your protection. Because when you protect your peace, you protect everything. Your energy, your focus, your growth, your destiny. And in that protection, you rise. And maybe one day, the same people who once tried to break you will look back and wonder why they no longer affect you. They'll wonder why their silence doesn't scare you, why their rage doesn't move you, why their guilt no longer works. They'll wonder how you became so untouchable. And the answer will be simple. You finally understood that the only person who had the power to destroy you is the one who gave it away. And you will never give it away again, because you're no longer the same. You are stronger. You are clearer. You are untouchable. And above all, you are free.